By way of introduction, my name is Andrea Ferguson. The role that I have here at UCLan is the head of our graduate research school, which means that I look after all of our postgrad research students, PhD Masters by Research, and the research supervisors, but in addition, I manage this undergraduate research internship programme that we run, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. What I'm going to do with the 20 minutes or so that I've got is give you a brief overview of how that programme operates. I'll then highlight the benefits, the successes that we've had, and then towards the end of my presentation, I'll just draw out some of the issues we've encountered, areas where perhaps we haven't quite got it right yet, we would like to see some enhancements. So if it's a scheme that you run in your universities or something you are thinking about doing, there may be lessons to learn or share. We'll then have 10 minutes at the end for questions, comments, further discussion. So the scheme itself has been running at UCLan since 2008. As I say, it is an opportunity for our undergraduate students, which is a point I'll pick up on a little bit later, and it is a summer internship opportunity. The length of the internships is generally 8 to 10 weeks, so it is the full summer period. And again, I'll come back to that point a little bit later in terms of contrasting with similar schemes run at other British universities. There are a number of different factors underpinning the scheme, a number of different rationales coinciding. One is this: generally, we have a preference for offering the internships to our second year students. So most programmes here are 3-year undergraduate degree programmes. The bulk of our undergraduate students will undertake a research project leading to a dissertation in their final year. So we exercise a slight preference towards the year 2 students so that between years 2 and years 3, they undertake a research project under the guidance of a member of our academic staff, develop the kind of skills that they will need to plan out and undertake a research project with something written down at the end. So we're developing their skills, although it is extracurricular and outside of their course, with a view to supporting the skills they need for the final year, but also potentially their attainment in that final year project. I won't bore you with how we grade our students at the end of their 3-year degree, but let's just say there is an opportunity for exit velocity. So if we are enhancing their skill set going into that final year, then that can support attainment. The other is that our university very much has a focus on widening participation. So many of our students may be from lower socio-economic backgrounds. They may be the first in the family to go to university. So aspirations around academic careers or postgraduate study may not be there. So this scheme originally was actually set up under the auspices of our widening participation agenda. So to raise aspirations and widen experience. And part of that is that the internship is working closely with a project lead, a principal investigator from our academic staff base. There are other benefits just around, I've talked about some of the sort of engagement leading to higher attainment and also potentially student retention. Okay, so that if a student is with us over the summer, then we don't see that risk of dropout. So we do have some year 1 to year 2 students as well. It's also, I'll be honest with you, a very good way of us promoting our postgraduate programmes, that's postgraduate taught and postgraduate research programmes to our existing students, a little bit of a try before you buy, if you like. So a number of underpinning rationales. Okay, so what I'll do now is give you a brief canter through the actual operations. And the reason that I'm doing that is because if it's something you think, maybe we could do that at our university, I'm kind of counselling or cautioning that what might sound like a short summer internship is actually a year-long process requiring quite an amount of staff support, but also from various different areas of the university being pulled in, and I'll explain that as we go. So the key timeline is February to October, although you'll see as I go through that really this is year-long with some peaks and troughs. So February is really when it all kicks off. We send out an internal call to all of our academic staff for would you like to put in for one of these research internships. There is a process, an internal effectively bidding requirement and some paperwork to complete. We generally go out for 40 to 50 internships. We generally get 80 to 90 projects coming in. We therefore convene a panel. We have 5 faculties here at the university, so we convene a panel across those 5 faculties to ensure equal representation, and we have some advertised criteria for selecting the projects. One is the panel will look for what are going to be the research outputs of this project. We look at things like, are there going to be any publications in which the student's name would be recognised, their input? We look at, is there any opportunity for the student to be undertaking data collection and again being able to demonstrate that as an output, conference attendance. We wouldn't expect conference presentation from a student, although they might do a poster, for instance. We look, is there going to be any external impact? And when I say external impact, what I mean is the projects that we get in are sometimes small self-contained projects. Sometimes they are a piece of work in a much larger project which will have external impact. Increasingly though, we are also looking at internal impact. And when I say internal impact, what I mean is we might get a research project in where there is a focus on, for example, looking at our pedagogy or internally our student experience and enhancements for that. So we are looking at some form of impact. When we're on the panel, we're also looking at are we giving the internships across as many disciplines as possible. I won't lie to you in this room, we get very little tax. In fact, we get we get very few actually from the business and social sciences, full stop. The bulk of these internships currently do go actually towards our science subjects. We also look for a very clear action plan as to how the intern will be developed and supported and where their skills development will be at the end of the internship. I mentioned before we have certain preferences for certain years of study. So there is quite a rigorous review process there. We are really looking at which of these projects maximise a positive student experience and develop the students the most. Okay, and the part of the reason that we sort of have the panel across the disciplines is my background is law, so when I read some of these research projects, number one, some of them from the sciences I don't really understand, and so I can be either a bit overly impressed and think, I don't understand it, therefore it must be a fantastic project, or some of them, particularly the ones that come from the astrophysicists, the projects tend to be this sort of like, you know, we'll find a new star or we'll scope out a new galaxy, and again, so we need that wider panel to say, actually, Andrea, it's not as exciting as it looks on paper. Okay, so when we've confirmed these are the projects that can proceed, we then have a briefing for those principal investigators to ensure that they are fully on board with this is not a lackey to do your gophering for 8 weeks. This is a development opportunity that we are offering to our own students to enhance their experience and their subsequent attainment, whether that is academically, whether that is career-wise, or other forms of progression. Okay, we have to get that message across. We then run a workshop for the students in terms of the application process, to look at what does good look like in terms of when you're making the application, what are the selection panel going to be looking like? Because we then have a normal selection process, that is, the students complete their application, they are then interviewed by a panel. We say normally at least 2 academics, sometimes 3, depending on the project, if it was across perhaps 2 disciplines. And that can be intimidating for some of our students. That could be the first job type interview that they go to. So we try to prepare them for that. If we can, we offer everybody an interview, even if the application is not so good. Why? So they can get feedback on this is why it was not good. So that application and selection process can take, again, a little bit of time. We run the internships then from June to August. They are paid internships, so the interns are paid our national minimum wage. They work 36.25 hours a week. They do get holiday entitlement, no sick pay, but holiday entitlements, they get about 4 days holiday over the course of the summer. And we identify training needs and provide some training as we go along. That training would generally be on things like how to conduct a literature review, and then perhaps on some of the software like NVivo in terms of qualitative data analysis. We do expect the interns at the end to present a poster at an internal poster event, so we give them training on that. What we ask is that the project leads identify the training needs, we collate those and then run a training programme throughout the internship. Okay, as soon as the internships end, we are then on data collection, getting case studies from the students, from the project leads, getting their feedback, because as soon as we've got that, we are on to evaluating last year's internship, planning for next year's internship. There are then, as I say, opportunities for the students to present what they've done. It's mandatory that they all present at a poster showcase event that is held on campus in October. We invite the great and the good from the research community here at UCLan, and we have again a panel who select the best 2 posters from those that are presented with, I have to say, big money prizes or Amazon voucher prizes. First prize is $150, second prize is $100. which is quite the incentive. The best two as well, we send to an event called Posters in Parliament, which is kind of, it is what it says. Other undergraduate researchers from other British universities who have participated in similar schemes present their posters in Parliament, get to chat to MPs and so on. And again, there is then a selection process, and the best win awards and a bit of kudos. Okay. There is then an annual conference, British Conference of Undergraduate Research, that occurs a little bit later on. That's in April each year, by which point we're then already on to the following year, which is why I'm saying it's a whole year process. And again, we field a small delegation to go to that event. So, in terms then of some of the successes, some of the benefits, so over the time this programme has been running, we have had over 600 internships run through. When I was preparing this presentation, I've gone back through the various feedback sheets to see what some of the students have been saying, to pick out some of the themes. So there are quite a lot of feedback sheets that say, I'd never thought I could do this, I'm now interested in going on to further study, or I'd never thought of an academic career, it hadn't appealed to me, now I'm totally open to the idea. So that widening participation agenda, that perhaps changing of mindset, raising of aspirations, or just broadening aspirations is definitely occurring. We definitely see that skills development. Again, the feedback is, I wouldn't have known what a literature review was before I undertook this internship. I feel much better placed, either going on to my postgraduate talk programme or into the third year of study. We do have students whose names have gone on to joint publications, onto grant applications. Obviously, that is great in terms of building their CV and having something very credible to talk about at interview. Conference attendance, many of these research interns will be asked to go to conferences with their principal investigators. Particularly, I'll point out one of the hazards of it being in the summer, but one of the benefits is that's when a lot of our academics do go to conferences, so they can scoop up the intern and take them with. It's generated a lot more confidence in our students in terms of seeking out PhD opportunities, applying for them, looking for them in the first place. And on occasion, we do run some projects with external clients. So one this year was with an arts-based project over in Clitheroe, and that gives the students contact with potential employers as well. Here we go. A couple of our very recent successes. So at the Posters in Parliament in 2017, we had a highly commended student, Michael Woods, and last year Rebecca Townsend was in the top 10 of the Posters in Parliament. So our UCLan students are competing in that sense with the best and being recognised. Both science students, I'm afraid. There we go. Now, this is just the final part then of my presentation, just to draw out some of those. Sounds brilliant. Yes, fine, fantastic. Things are never quite perfect though. We only offer these opportunities to our undergraduate students. We've never actually expanded them to our foundation year students or even our postgraduate taught or postgraduate research. We're always even a little less inclined to offer to our first year students, just in case their skills aren't quite there yet, or we have to modify the projects too much. But in an ideal world, actually, the nature of regular research internships with our academic members of staff would be a very good thing to be offering right from joining us all the way through, rather than just at a key point like the transition from year 2 into year 3. The internships that we run are summer internships full-time, 8 to 10 weeks. That presents some accessibility issues. So for example, it's rare for our nursing students to be able to undertake one of these internships. Why? The time of year we run it, the nature of it being full-time, is that they're often on their placement in the NHS here. Our part-time students who may be working or who have family commitments, again, we have accessibility issues. In some ways the summer is great. We've got a free chunk of time when we know that students are not involved in their programmes, can focus on the research internship. However, it's also a time when a lot of academic staff are off on holiday. So we keep looking at the model, we keep tweaking it, and so for example some other universities will run much shorter internships, 4 weeks, smaller projects, different chunks throughout the year. So the point I'm making is there are different models. I'm explaining ours. It comes with its benefits and disbenefits. Qualifying criteria, we keep looking at this every year. We sometimes look at, or we have in the past, we've tried to bring this back down a notch or two, that as I say, we had a preference for second year students, preferably those that were on course for a 2-1, and preferably in areas of the university where 4-star referable research was taking place. You can see, I think, how that may conflict with a widening participation agenda. So what I'm trying to say is that we want to offer, you know, a quality product to those students that can benefit most from it, but we have to balance that with actually how are we ensuring that that is an equitable opportunity and accessible. Okay. We struggle often in the period that we've got on the internships to get enough training in, really. The students are focused on the research projects. By goodness, you can imagine our project leads, our principal investigators are focused on the outputs of the research project. Forget about the training, just get on with the job. And likewise, although during the internship the students can access our careers service, we don't enforce that in a way. So really, I would say that there is more that could be done to support the students, if you like, parlaying that research internship project into the next opportunity. Digitisation is a problem. None of the forms or processes are digitised. It's a bit clunky, it's a bit unwieldy, it takes an awful amount of administrative support. If you're thinking of adopting it, digitise from the outset. Budgetary issues, it's not cheap, okay? The annual wage bill for the interns here is give or take £150,000 per annum. So it's an investment that the university makes. There are then the ongoing staff costs that are involved with this. We also have a peculiar situation. I won't bore you unduly with the details, but our internship straddles 2 budget years, which actually makes budgeting and the finances of it incredibly complex. Our financial year ends on the 31st of July, halfway through the internship. So you're sort of taking from 2 different budget years and trying to match it up. Something to think about. Community engagement, we don't do that. We don't offer internships to our community partners. Potentially we could do, that's something for us to think about. Likewise, our overseas partners, we have a campus, UCLan Cyprus. We have lots of institutions that we work with internationally. Again, I'm probably being overly ambitious there, thinking of sending students all over the world to undertake these internships, but you know, these are some of the constraints that we put on the programme. This point, HR careers legal, that's the point I was making earlier about we have to pull different parts of the university in. So every year there is then a need to engage with the legal team to check the employment contract is up to date, that we are not breaching anything like immigration permissions, working time regulations, that we're not inadvertently discriminating against individuals. We have the normal HR process in terms of selection, so the HR department needs to be engaged throughout, and likewise I made the point before about careers in terms of that helping students to convert what they've done into the next steps. We don't do anything either with our alumni. So once they've been through a research project, what we sometimes see is a year one student to year two does a summer internship. They'll come back and do a year two to year three. And then once they graduate, we wave them off and say, excellent, good to have had you, but we don't then reconnect with them. That again is another area of enhancement, and if it's something you're thinking of doing, take on board. So that's my quick canter through what we do, how we do it, why we do it, lessons potentially to learn or to take away.